Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy Mob. Today, I have a very special guest, and we're in our new setup and studio, so you're the first, so I'm really happy about this. But I have Brandy Hollaway with me, and we were just talking offline before we started here. She's actually going to change her last name. What did you say again? It was going to be Brandy
Firestarter.
Brandy Firestarter Hollaway. I think it's got a ring to it. It's a heck of a business card. Can you imagine?
Right.
Hey, Brandy, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. This was a great surprise.
Hey, for Brandy, for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now and kind of don't know your story and kind of how you got started and what your business is all about, I've had the opportunity to follow along with you, and you make me laugh at least once a day. So it's fun to watch your content. But let's start off with, what is the origin story that is Brandy Hollaway?
Well, that could actually be an entire book, and it will be. I've been writing that, but to give you guys the short version is I have always had the entrepreneurial spirit. I grew up in a very small town in Alabama where you didn't really have the entrepreneurs. So I had nothing to go on and just started various businesses. I was always really good at sales. That's what I learned at a very young age. And as I became an entrepreneur, I failed miserably. Once again, not really going into the details, but I learned a lot about the fact that just because you're good at something doesn't make you good at business. And there's a lot of things that you need to come up with, foundationally. So once I started to learn that and I started to begin to coach people and consult them, that's kind of where the Phoenix factor came from. My business is that you really have to have that factor about you, have to have that mentality about you that you're going to fail. And what you do with that failure. So our term that we use is ignite, burn, rise, soar. So you're going to ignite your passion, but you're probably going to burn. You're going to fail. You're going to crash. But what do? You learn and you rise from the ashes. So this is kind of how we go into, working with anyone. That it's just not always about the numbers right off the bat. It's like, where do you need to rise to? Where do you need to level up? What do you need to learn? Are you okay failing? And I love my journey that I've been on. I love that it's all built on failure that I'm proud of, because now I am in a amazing space that I would have never dreamt I would be in.
That is so cool. And you know what? Failure, I love failure too. I really do. I actually just posted about it this morning. Talk about the quickest way to learn something, is just by falling flat on your face and just getting a little dirt on you. And, what's funny? This morning I posted a post, something along the lines of, if the strategy doesn't work, change the strategy, don't change the goal. And, I find it in a lot of cases, we kind of get into that mindset where we're so focused on the goal that we're, that we'll move it around.
Yeah.
If our efforts aren't in line and we don't feel like we're getting to that goal, we'll just move the bloody goal around. That's really not the best approach, is it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's funny because you mentioned mindset, and I think that's where a lot of people don't understand. I literally just went live earlier today, and I was telling everyone, I said, stop for a second and really, really assess where you're at, because I think it's not even the goal. I don't think they freaking have clarity about where their goal is. So they think they know what they want. And number one, if it represents a numerical amount of money, then you're already thinking about it wrong, right? To me, I always tell people the money offers the freedom and options. So with what you're doing, if you reverse engineer that, where your mindset is, if you feel overwhelmed or you feel like you're swimming in circles all the time, then I guarantee you probably don't actually have a real goal.
Yeah, that's totally true. You know what? I do a lot of consulting with, car dealerships, and I am still dumbfounded today on how little amount of time is spent on goals. And now I say goals in the sense of, people out there listening go, no, Jason, I got all kinds of numbers I have to hit.
Right.
That's it. No, but that's not really your ultimate company or culture goal. And this is kind of why I wanted to jump on the phone with you or jump on this podcast with you, is because, community is a big part of that, right? Like, look, I run an agency, and this is probably a horrible idea for me to actually promote this, because, I live on those marketing dollars, and those marketing dollars is that constant promoting yourself. But if you actually take the time to build community and around your brand, all right, you actually can pull away from that drug-like addiction that you have in marketing spend. And I know you talk a lot about that, so I thought that's what we kind of start jamming. Is kind of, for you, what are those ABCs of developing out a community around a brand?
Yeah, ironically, same thing. And look, I get on my soapbox about this a lot, and it's strictly from my perspective and my learning lessons, and now working with the number of clients that I have. And I even want to premise this by saying this is not rocket science. I don't even have a degree from college. I didn't get some golden, certification somewhere. I think this is just something that, because I don't do the hard sell, I tell my clients, it's not about that for me. It's, I'm going to provide you with a service that you shouldn't be doing, because you should be building your community. Like, to me, whatever you're building, whatever solution it is that you're creating, a problem that you're solving, how do people know that you're doing that? And people think that they can throw a post up once a week and everybody's going to know, without really understanding how marketing works and how social media works, especially these days. And we're in this pandemic now, so people are really waking up to understanding how important marketing is. But community, my business exploded because I had a community. And I will say that because I worked my ass off building that community the last few years.
I'm with you. Me too. Same thing.
Yeah. Like LinkedIn, I would probably, and do I have an exact number? No, because the way that we work, but probably 70% of our clients have come from LinkedIn, and I don't run ads. We work off of referrals. Or as my grandma always said, the proof's in the pudding. I will literally call someone up and said, you know what, I'm going to do this for you just to show you that I'm not BSing you about how important it is to build a community. I'm going to show you how easy it is, right? And it kind of opens their eyes up. So when things like this happen, like what we're going through right now with this pandemic, there's some people that don't have a choice. They had to close down. Like we were talking about restaurants at one point earlier. I have a client that has a restaurant, but it doesn't, even when he closed, he still had the same number of people coming to the restaurant and picking up curbside because we took the time to build that
community. Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's truly what the definition of kind of community is, right? It's like you should be able to literally turn off all your marketing efforts, all right? But because your brand has brought in the consumer so much value that they just continue to do business with you without having to go spend, insane amount of acquisition dollars just to try to bring them back. And it's like, so let's talk about that. I think what it kind of comes down to is defining the why. Like, if I own a business, all right, why would someone want to be a part of my community? I mean, what value do I bring to them, all right, that's going to want them to actually connect, follow, and stay loyal to, to my business? And I know you got thoughts on this, so I'm going to let you kind of jam about that. But how do you help a client define the why someone should connect and follow the community?
I can tell you, we ask them a very big open-ended question. When we start working with clients, we have a questionnaire. I think we've got about 42 questions, and I'm going to tell you the response 9 times out of 10 that we get just from that form from our client, from the entrepreneur, is they're like, I never thought of that before, or I never thought like that before, that's our job. Our job is to get you thinking that way. And that question is typically, what do you want people to say about you? Which we know is kind of what defines the word brand, right? What do you want?
That's true.
Say, right? So what I always ask them is I say, hey, Jason, if I run into a client of yours 3 years from now, tell me what they're going to be saying about you. And whatever it is that you want them to say, then we reverse engineer that, break it down. And how do we build a community like that so that we have many?
That is such a good point, Brandy. A lot of people don't think that brand is something that they have to go and create. The funny thing is the fact that they didn't create it actually created it. because the brand already exists. And I tell a lot of businesses, and they go, well, what's my brand? Well, you know what? I find one of the quickest way to identify that is go look at your Google reviews and read the last 100 Google reviews and look for the most commonly used words. You're going to find 2 or 3 most commonly used words, all right? That is your brand. That is how people perceive you. Now, you may or may not like that.
But it is what it is.
But it is what it is. But at least that's a baseline that you know how you're being perceived as a brand. Now you have to define the goal. See, we're talking about goals, right? Like now you have to define the goal. How I want to be perceived as a brand. So, what are some? How do you go about that? How do you help a dealership? How do you help a business of any kind, really? All right, define what those words, I guess, or how they want to be described as a brand.
So then, off of that question, asking them, what do they want people to say about them? And kind of the same thing you mentioned, like, what are the keywords? And then the goal is to build consistent content explaining how you're able to solve the problem, create the solutions, provide a service to get them to that space, to get them to feel that way. And it's just, this is where we talk about cranking out that authentic content. People get around this aesthetic of looking perfect. I mean, I'm sure if you go back to some of the first pieces of content that you put out about your business or even podcasts, I go back and I cringe, but I love seeing it because it also shows me.
Okay. I got to digress her for 1 second because I got to know because you started that. And of course it drew me to my mind the first piece of content I created. Oh God, it was bad. All right. I need to know yours. All right. You share and then I'll share mine. Okay. So
I'll do you one better. I mean, I literally, I'll send it to you because I purposely have left this up on my Instagram.
That's so awesome.
The quality of the picture is absolutely horrible. I am completely clueless about making it clear about what I was doing. I was just kind of rambling, which at the time I was documenting. And one of the things that, I love. Yeah, it's now it is. Now, when I started a couple of years ago, nobody was telling you to document, right? People didn't understand that. True. And they damn sure didn't want to see you. We were talking about stories earlier. Stories is my jam because you can sit there and you can document all day in 15-second clips, but it gives people enough to understand who you are, right? I tell it like it is. If you don't like that, don't work with me because my job is to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, right? My job is to get you to that space, to get you to that goal. And so when you go back and look at like what you were just saying, you can kind of combine those first couple of posts that you did, keep it, don't erase it. I think it shows people your growth too. I don't give a shit what people think about what I was doing 2 years ago. I have grown immensely since then.
And that's kind of what it is. Like you have to understand, like building a community, developing out your brand, it's a journey. Right. It's not a race. It doesn't have a beginning and an end. Okay, it is just literally an ongoing thing, and I find that even in the last, my hardcore commitment to content's probably been in the last 3 years, and so I had 2 years of 2 years of the agency before then, and then a bunch of time in the dealerships even before then, but it's only in the last 3 years. So I'll tell you when I got serious about it. So I got serious about it, and I did exactly what you just said. I got really nervous about how it was going to look. Mm-hmm. I went out and bought this green screen. And I went out and bought this big expensive camera. And I ordered these big expensive lights from China. It took 6 weeks to come in. And, I bet you probably it was like 3 months of just like putting this room together and all this stuff. And then I get in there and I look at the camera and I'm just, and it was atrocious. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to go into this green screen room every single day and we're going to make this amazing content. And then I realized like, I got to run a freaking business. Like, this is horrible. This isn't going to work. And literally that same day, I gave up on the whole thing. Whatever, $6,000 I lost on it or whatever it is. We ended up using the equipment later, but still. I went out and bought a GoPro, mounted it, the little suction cup mount, stuck it in my car. Because I was on the road so much, I just drove. And as I was driving, I was doing what you were doing. I was documenting. Something came up in my head. I just reached up, hit the little record button, and just talked. And, that was kind of the beginning of it. But I find that that's the key to kind of creating the content. It's just hitting the red button, just getting started. All of our initial content looks horrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's gosh, I like to bring this up to a lot of people because I'm 48. So social media for me, I'm on that kind of curve, that line where there was no social media. Obviously, when I was growing up, when I was in high school, I guess not even in college. So I'm self-taught with all of this, with creating content and copy and headlines and hashtags and doing video. But at the end of the day, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you sell. If you believe in it, you're always selling one thing. And this can apply to anybody. I don't care if you're selling a car, if you're selling makeup, if you're selling this freaking microphone, right? You're selling the person hope that life will be better than it was before they got that product. So if you always remember that, and that's where I started going with my content, right? And a lot of times you're like, oh man, I'm repeating myself. You need to repeat yourself because people,
100%.
I don't remember the number, but it's something like people have to hear the same thing like 7 to 10 times before they'll even think about, connecting with you. They need to hear that consistent message from you.
Yeah. In marketing, we call it frequency.
Right.
So like, I wasn't really thinking much of it. Someone asked me the other day, like, do you just create a lot of content because you like Gary Vee or something? Or is that what it was? And I was like, no, I just took the strategy that I've always had in marketing is that, if you're trying to create brand awareness, all right, well, you're going to go buy a radio spot. You're not going to buy one radio spot. You're going to buy as many radio spots as you can possibly afford, but you've got to maintain frequency. So I just assumed, well, if I was going to build a brand and I was going to try to take advantage of some of this organic opportunity that was existing then, some of it still exists, but not a whole lot, right? We can talk a little bit about that too. But that I was going to have to put frequency, and now even still today, we put out about 37 pieces of content a day over 6 different platforms. And it's, but it sounds like a lot, but it was just a routine. Like we just got into a routine. It just became just like jumping on the bike and just doing it. But in the beginning, man, like it was you were pulling teeth. Now, you said something earlier, and I wanted to go back to it because we're talking a little bit about social media. I think for the most part, a lot of business out there I see understand the media portion of social media, right? Take a picture, throw a filter on it, shoot a video, I upload it, all right? I'm finding right now, though, the businesses that do the best of really creating community and brand, all right, actually are more on their social game, not necessarily the media game. And I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I think some of the things that we run our clients through, for example, are, we'll take the restaurant, for example, that we work with, the franchise that we work with. People know you sell food. If you want to create a community, how do you do that? I love food. I don't love all food. I love certain food. So, but at the end of the day, they're a localized business. They need to build a community. And I said, so what you need to do is you need to highlight your community and tie that in with your product, your service, whatever. So in this case, it's food. So we did some little simple things, tag your favorite teacher, nurse, photographer, whatever. Like we picked people in the community and then we brought them in, they had lunch on the restaurant and had them tag and had them go and talk about the restaurant. And then other people came to talk about that. So that's that influencer part of the social media that people are, I feel like, getting really wrong right now because
a lot of people are getting that totally wrong.
It's not about being an Instagram model. It's really not. If you're going to connect with your ideal client, then you need the model of that ideal client as your influencer. And that's technically what we do. So we just reach out to people that are already in that community, that are doing well with social, they're active. And as an influencer, where they're in the community, how do we find more of you? How do we bring more of you? What was appealing to you to come into the page? And so, the name of the game is engagement with social media.
I know, right? It's all about engage.
Yeah, you can have 1 million, and I think we've all seen it now because people are coming clean. There are people out there that have 1 million followers that we thought they just had this kick-ass life and they were rolling in the dough.
I know where you're going. Yep.
And they're freaking broke.
Oh, they're broke and it was all fake. They bought them.
They rented the plane, or, So yeah, it's been, and that was a wake-up call for me in a good way because I had so many people saying, Brandy, what you're doing is not going to work. You got to run ads, you got to run Google. I don't disagree with that, with our clients doing that, but for the long game, you're going to have to put in the time to build your community. And then when shit happens like it is right now with the pandemic, guess what? We haven't had any of our clients fall off at all. None.
No, because the value's there, right? Like, I think a lot of businesses have to realize that when they think of a community, you're not setting out to build millions and millions and millions of people following, because that's really not even necessary, right? If a restaurant had, and same thing even with the dealership, if they had 3,000 loyal customers, that would almost literally provide their more than 50% of their entire business for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well,
it's
like
not the intent. We don't have to go build it. Well, yeah. What is a follower, right? Like that's a good point. There was something I was going to bring up earlier when you were talking about the restaurant. I have a restaurant here. You'd love this. I have this strategy. I call it social worthiness. So it's like, what do you do as a business that's social worthy? And I find like restaurants, it's the easiest thing in the world, right? Because they're food, and there's this thing called food porn. And people get high on just going through their feeds and just looking at amazing dishes and food, and it's a thing. And so there's a local diner here. It was just a lunch and breakfast place, nothing special, right? Decided to go make 14 different milkshakes. And each one is easily over the top of the other one. I mean, you got donuts coming out of them. You got sparklers coming out of them. You got literally like a chunk of cake hanging out of another one. You have churros sticking out like a bouquet of flowers out of it with chocolate-covered strawberries and all this stuff. And I'm going to tell you right now, the milkshake's it's just a milkshake. It's good. I mean, it's good. But there's a social worthy element to it. So if you go and look them up right now, you can actually look them up as a business. What you're going to find is not a whole lot of information about the business. What you're going to find is 14,000 pictures of people taking selfies of themselves with these milkshakes.
Yes.
So I call it social worthiness. Why would someone want to come to your business and snap that photo or be a part of that community? Or, it's like it's wearing the badge. Like I was a Boy Scout. I don't know if you did. Did you do anything like Girl Scouts or anything like that when you were a kid? Okay, well, like you get these badges for everything you do. Everything you achieve, you get a badge for, right? So it's like I talked to a business and I'm like, okay, well, why would someone get their ABC Motors badge? Like, why would they wear that, right? What they want to wear with pride. So going down kind of that strategy, what are your thoughts? Do you have some ideas or even some examples of some of your own clients that have created kind of this social worthy style strategy?
We try to push everyone, to do that. I will say this, and this is the analogy I use going into it. And another reason why I chose the Phoenix Factor. If you want to start a fire, right, you need people to see you. You need to be visible. So how do we start the fire? You got to have kindling, you got to have the spark, you got to have the base of what the business is going to be. And then, as they say, where there's smoke, there's fire. So eventually you get to this point where people
I like that analogy. That's so true.
They see it everywhere. So how do you make that happen? You've got to get people, like you said, that I love that term. I'm going to steal that, social worthiness, but it's like, how do we get there? And then at the same time, how exhausting would it be? Because we know what happens if you start a fire and you're throwing logs, right? You're throwing your logs of consistency in your social media.
You got to keep it burning.
Right. You got to keep it going. And so our term is, how do we create an inferno of success? Because when you have an inferno, guess what happens? You can take a little break. You can go to Tahiti for 3 days. You can do those things, because when you have an inferno, even if it were to lessen, which hopefully you have things in place, operations, systems, and strategies where that doesn't happen. But even if it did, you still have a freaking roaring fire, right? If you're not consistent and you don't have those things in place, your fire is going to go out and you're starting over. And we see people doing this also. They're doing the wrong thing consistently because they're quitting and starting over, and starting over.
It's the worst thing you can possibly do.
Yeah. So, that's kind of the analogy I use with that, for you to have that social worthiness, meaning why would people share your content or tag you or check in, and you have to tell them these things. They don't know. They're hurting their business. It makes me cringe when I see people that post and I'm like, why didn't you tag the business? Why didn't you, So it's like, and the great thing now is I'm on the hashtag game, because hashtags are now SEO for every platform. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of them, you can now search hashtags. So this is how I network, and this is how I go in and find my people, right? Because I know it's not necessarily the person that used the hashtag, it's the person following that person that used that hashtag.
No. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's a strategy that is easily executionable, right? Like, I mean, someone can literally, after they're done listening or watching us speak, they can go do this. So,
Yeah.
let's go hashtag 101. All right. I mean,
Okay.
we both we know our hashtags, but let's go hashtag 101 for the audience. Explain to me a little bit, go a little more in depth about the hashtag strategy.
So, I mean, literally people see them and they don't understand. And they're like, oh, I hate all these annoying hashtags. And the deal is, as an entrepreneur, now clients may not understand it. They don't have to. This is how your person finds you. And there's definitely a strategy, and there's a different, and I will say this is a little deflating for some people. It's a really different strategy on every platform as far as being seen. However, I use it as a search engine. And as I mentioned to you, so I'm going to use an example, and this is what I do on LinkedIn. Who's my ideal client? Someone that has a localized business, a small business, right? So I make sure that I go in and I find the people that are either in those areas. I look at the hashtags they're using. I look at the comments so I can find additional hashtags, and I follow those hashtags. And what that does, because I've searched it out, it's in my ideal client avatar, and I'm following that hashtag now on LinkedIn. I know that I'm going to start seeing that person's content pop up in my feed, and I have an alarm that goes off every day for 15 minutes. I make sure that I go into LinkedIn and I make sure that I go in and engage with those people under that hashtag. I build a relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and it's easy to execute. Now, I actually feel like that's a strategy that an owner should be doing. Like, I find sometimes too often we kind of pawn stuff off to an admin person or something like that. But it's like, it's a great way to really kind of keep your thumb on the pulse of, what people are talking about within your specific vertical, and it's like, I know a lot of people are always kind of looking like they want that quick 5-minute, 30,000 foot view of like what's happening right now in real estate in my local space, or what's hot in restaurants right now, or what's hot in automotive. And it's like, but I agree with you. That's a quick, fast way to get in there, learn, but then to engage. I don't think either one of us could probably say it enough how much it's required to
I would rather
talk.
Yeah. I mean, and I tell my clients, and it's funny you brought that up, because of course our agency offers management. So we are engaging as that client. But I will tell you with complete transparency, I don't go on and bullshit sometimes. I make sure I send the client, I'm like, hey, what would you say to this? Because as I learn, I can continue to respond as my client.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But it's got to be genuine and authentic. So if you're, no offense, but if you've hired an agency to help you with your social media and they're giving that cold, sterile response, like, thumbs up, or, great insight, and that they keep saying the same thing, you're not going to build a relationship that way. People aren't going to come back. My term to most people is to write 5 words or more, because typically you're writing a sentence and they see that you're actually engaging with them.
No, it's totally true. I mean, look, it's not enough to say, hey, great post.
So I really think it's important for people to really think about and simplify the processes of all of this that we're talking about into how do you build your fire? Your spark, your passion, but where's the fuel? What's going to fan the flames? What logs do you consistently put on? I post about this all the time. It's just that you need logs of consistency. Motivation is fleeting. If you're waiting to be motivated daily, you're going to fail probably as well. The fire needs to come from discipline, right? So I know that you probably do things daily, like this morning.
It's all about the routine.
Right. I'm like, people think that I am not one of those people that wants to jump out of bed at 5:30 in the morning and work out and drink my shake and then get my day on. That is not me. I want to sit up till 2 o'clock in the morning with a glass of wine creating content.
Yeah, that's pretty much, yep. Sounds like my night.
So whatever works. I know there's the 5:30 a.m. club. I guess I'm the 2 a.m. club. I feel like I know when I do my best work, and it's just all those things that's your fire. Like, that is your business. How do you create the inferno of success? And you just get really honest with yourself. What's extinguishing your fire is just as important when you're talking about your business and marketing and branding and strategy, because we know we have things that extinguish it. And some of us, I don't know whether you're trying to avoid conflict or you're
Oh
worried about
yeah,
what
for
people
sure.
are going
Actually, I
to
want to go
say.
more into the fire real quick because
Yeah.
I actually look. That's why people want to be a part of your community. That's why they connect with you. That's why
Get
they
fired up.
continue to stay to connect with you. Is
Yeah.
because they want to feel that warmth of that same fire, right?
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
that fire is similar in them as well. And that's where that connection comes. And then that's where you can start building up that community. What I find, and we were talking a little bit about this earlier, is people fake their fire. Like, it's like whatever the flavor of the day is, that's what their fire is going to be, you know. And like I tell people a lot too when they're building their brands that, you know, that flame, that passion, that fire, I love the way that you describe it, is not necessarily what you do as a business as much as what you're maybe more passionate about. So walk me through how do you help clients find their fire?
Well, I think ultimately it's the $1 million question of, if money didn't matter, what would you be doing? What about this business gets you excited? What part of it? What aspect? You know, the helping, the problems that you're solving, solutions you're creating. I mean, it comes down to a pretty basic set of questions. You're solving a problem, you're creating a solution, or you're providing them with a tangible product that does one of those, that helps with one of those things. And if you could do that and you weren't going to make a dime, I'm like, what part of that gets you excited? I will tell you, because I'm pretty straightforward with everyone, in being transparent, I'm guilty. I used to be one of those people, and I kept shifting, thinking, oh, I got to be this and I got to be this. And then when I realized that no one was going to know me and really truly understand how I could help them or my business could help them until I got really clear on what I'm passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
until I got okay with the fact that everybody's not going to like what I'm putting out or how I'm saying or how I'm doing it. I need to be okay with it. There's always someone out there that's better than you.
But don't you find that the people then connect with you are a stronger part of your community because you're just being you?
100%.
You know, like I'm told that I'm a little harsh.
No,
And that
I've never heard that.
like I'm told that I maybe use too many 4-letter words, and I have a very much so kind of tough love approach with my clients, and some people can really get put off by that. But then the ones that don't get put off by that become amazing individuals in my community. Do you see the same?
Yeah, so guess what you're doing? If you shift from being the person that drops the F-bomb, right?
Yeah.
Because I do the same thing. But if you shift from that, you're extinguishing your own fire because you can't be yourself. So
That's
now
true.
you're making the choice to extinguish your fire to light someone else's fire. And then really how far can you really light that fire? How much can you fan their flames when you can't even be yourself? And you can apply that to anything in life, which, you know, people don't get. So, you know, look, I hear that all the time. People tell me I'm a hard ass. They tell me I drop the F-bomb too much. You know, and I'm like, look, here, I'm going to tell you why. I know the exact moment that I shifted and got really good and really determined and really disciplined to make this work. I know the exact moment it happened. I'm going to tell you exactly the words that were said to me. Is the guy goes, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but you're working at a level 7, not a 10.
That's a
Get your ass
good
in
smack in the face.
Right? So I was speechless. I couldn't really even say anything because I knew he was right. So at that pivotal moment, I have to decide, am I going to be offended? Because
like I think most people would be, right? Most people would take offense to that. They wouldn't take the
of
moment
course.
to actually
How dare
think,
you?
right?
Yeah, and I was one of those people. I would have been offended. I played the victim for so long in my life and my business, which is why I had a failed business, right? So at that pivotal moment, I was like, there's nothing I can say because he's right. And if I don't want it bad enough and I don't work at a level 10, and this is not about hustle and grind. I want to make that really clear because I am not that. I believe in all aspects. We are humans working and
Yep.
being and doing.
I think everyone's
all about-
got to find their own pace and their own marathon, and they just got to run their own
Yeah.
race. And
Yeah.
you know, if for some people, you know, that means that they work 14 hours a day. Okay, well then that's that. It doesn't mean that they're going to outwork me, or their passion's going to be more than me. That's their rhythm, that's their pace, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if even if you break that down, I found that I could work a 14-hour day being busy, but am I being productive?
Oh, hell yeah, man. How often do you meet people that literally just move paperwork from one side of the desk to the other side of the desk for 8 hours straight?
Yep. Yeah. Cause that's why I laugh when they're like, I see you everywhere. How do you put all this content out? You must be on your phone all the time. I can go to the park with my kids for a couple of hours. I can go do exercise. I can sit and binge on my favorite Netflix show. Like, I do other things. You see what I choose to allow you to see. You don't see my whole life. But when I'm on it, I could sit here and right now I could record 100 pieces of content. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you saw, I don't know, I guess about a week or two ago when the whole 10 tips in 10 days LinkedIn thing started again this year. I was like, you know what? I like being a disruptor, obviously. And I thought instead of following along with the same thing, and it was kind of boring this year for me. I love Frankie Baby. I don't know if you follow him. I
know who you're talking about. Yep.
I love his videos. I love his enthusiasm. And I thought, I'm going to show someone how you go and take somebody who's cranking out content. So basically, it's like, if you suck at social media, this is how you put it out. This is how you get your content. I took one of his posts, and I show people how to create 60 pieces of content.
Oh yeah, that's it. Look, see, you have to be intentful. That's what it comes down to, right? Like, I mean, we can literally, like, I'll take this podcast that we do and I'll probably squeeze 30, 40 pieces of content out of the entire thing, right? But to do that, I have to be intentful. Things just don't come on their own, right? Even creating content is intentful. Like, we have to create that routine. Like, I mean, I know every single Wednesday I sit down in this desk for the whole day and I do pump out about 4 or 5 podcasts. And that's it on a Wednesday. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm on the road with my team, all right, and they're capturing content the entire day. And then Mondays are this, like, but I find also, that's actually helped me out a lot, because what I've learned from being intentful is how efficient I am with the time that I have. And now that's bleeded over into all aspects of my life, including even my family life, right? Like, it's just like, if I find the key to being success, the key to creating community, and all of this have had to be with how intentful I was about my efforts. And now I'm finding the exact same thing. So I will actually, in my phone, schedule kid time, like a meeting. And the cool thing is, when I schedule on my phone, you have the little do not disturb button you can slide over. So the phone doesn't ring, notifications don't go off until the time is up, but it's through being intentful that I'm finding that I've become more successful in my efforts, probably 10 times more successful than I ever have in the past. How do you be intentful? I think everyone's got a little bit different strategy. I'm curious for yourself, how do you be intentful daily?
We actually keep it pretty simple. So for me and my team, another thing I learned about myself was servant leadership is what keeps me fired up. So for me to be intentful, I need to know what I'm doing and who I'm providing, these things for, whether it be my children, whether it be myself, whether it be part of my team or clients. So it's really easy. I ask myself, and I talk about, this is something I talk about till I'm blue in the face. When I wake up in the morning, I'm going to use today as an example. I was super tired. I've actually had insomnia off and on with all this craziness going on, because I'm used to being around people, and
I hear you on that one.
People, and so, today, I was tired, and it's like, here's the thing though, how do I get myself fired up? I have to set the intentions to do that. Like you said, it's not just going to happen. You don't just wake up and go, I'm going to go kick ass today. Well, some people do, and more power to them. I'm not that way every day, but I think the way to do that is to ask yourself the simple question of, what's one thing I can do today to feel successful, to feel abundant, to feel happy, to feel fulfilled. And instead of making it a million things, because you can't do everything.
That's totally true.
You can't do everything.
Yep.
And so I ask myself, and I keep a dry erase marker in my bathroom. I have the big bathroom mirror. And so when I'm getting ready, and as things are like kind of hitting me, or I'm brushing my teeth or whatever that thing is, I start writing it out. And some things will stay on my mirror until I've actually accomplished them. And I know some people call that manifesting. And I think it is possible in that way. because you're constantly setting the intention to make that thing happen.
Oh, that's a good one. I have a weird one. Everyone gives me a hard time because I have emails in my inbox that are not marked as read, but have been in that inbox for maybe 2 or 3 years. And it's just a subject line. But that's how I tell myself to do things, is that I create to-do lists. And how I create to-do lists is that I email myself. It sounds ridiculous. I email myself. And then in the subject line, whatever the hell I have to get accomplished, that's where I put it.
But it doesn't, and it doesn't. I mean, that's the thing is like what you just said is you chose to, irregardless of it sounding weird or crazy or dumb, you did it because you knew that's what you needed to be more intentful. And that's the thing is if people will quit worrying about what everybody else thinks and understand that at the end of the day, you are 100% accountable to whatever's happening or not happening in your life, in your business. So get your ass in gear and go make it happen. Set the intention.
You know what I'm thinking about. I'm diving into it. So I use Gmail. Have for the longest time. People still give me a hard time for using Gmail, but that's what I use. I like it.
I'm all Gmail.
Now the cool thing with Gmail, when you organize your emails, will only keep the top 15 emails highlighted at the very top, and you have to continue to 15 or 20. I think it's 15 or 20. All right, so it always stays there, and I actually have to make priority of which one goes and which one stays. And and since I check my email, like I think most people check their email, 62 times a day, I'm constantly being reminded of whatever that to-do is. And I think the oldest to-do I have, it's of course at the bottom of the list, but it's the oldest to-do I have. It's probably 2.5 years old, and I've just never marked it as a read email because it constantly reminds me. That's pretty cool. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, I love it. We use ClickUp. So Jen, she's the COO of Phoenix Factor, but with project management ends up things, and she knows that I work that way as well. So I have in ClickUp, you get notified of the things that you're going to do that day, right? So I time block it because as a creative person, I could sit and write content all day and be perfectly happy, but that's not going to make my business successful.
No, that's so true.
Yeah, so I love having the ClickUp app, and now we use it for our team, so they know when their deadline is there. We can see the progress, and if it's something ongoing, you can leave it that way. So every day, same thing. When I open up my phone, I have a little list of my tasks to complete. Then I see like my book is in there, or my podcast, or there's different things in there that just kind of remind me to do those.
World domination, possibly, is that in there?
No.
You know what? I want to elaborate a little bit more on community and what community means now. Because I think why people are connecting and being a part of companies, communities, and brands have changed in the last 6 months than, let's say, the previous year. And I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on that. Like, is it... I'll give you, for example, I was actually talking to that restaurant owner that I was talking about earlier that had the milkshakes, right? And he's like, really, like, do I really need to keep pumping these things out? Like, how relevant is, like, my milkshakes right now? Like, my milkshakes don't mean anything, right? Now, I actually disagreed with him. I actually said, no, it's for you, it's a format of escapism, all right? So, no, you need to keep pumping it out there because people get that moment of that sugar high and that bliss of that crazy, insane-looking thing. So no, keep doing it. But I think for people now that are just creating communities and creating brands, I think they're struggling, or one of the excuses maybe they're using is because, well, it's a pandemic. I'm not going to start a community. What are your thoughts on that?
If there was ever a good time to start a community, it is now during the pandemic for sure. Because and when I say this, I do not mean this with any disrespect, but the beauty of this pandemic, if you want to see the silver lining of this pandemic, right, is that nobody knows what the hell is going on or what they're doing because no one in a million years was ever prepared. There was no exit strategy, no performance strategy. There was nothing that prepared anyone for what's going on right now. So if you take that into perspective in your industry and think, what do our clients, like what do our ideal customers, clients, whatever, what do they need right now to know that things are going to be okay? And that may not mean my actual product, right? It may mean something on the back end of me telling them a story of way back when. Like I've been telling people, like, I failed when there wasn't a pandemic. I failed at a business, and let me tell you this story, and it sucked. I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost my business. I was evicted. I mean, I hit rock bottom because so many people right now, they're there. Some people are losing their home. Some people are being evicted. And I'm like, that freaking sucks. Like, it really does, but you're going to be okay. And so for me, building community, it's like having a community offers you the opportunity to take off the work hat and put on your favorite hat and sit around the campfire with those people and tell the stories that you should be telling about why you love what you're doing, why you love serving them. And that's what they want to know. What's the cliche? People don't care what you do.
They care until they know how much you care.
Right. So that's really what you're doing with your
favorites.
community. It's true.
You know what I'm finding right now is I'm being asked a lot of, what value can I possibly bring? All right. I'm a pizza place. I'm a car dealership. I sell accessories. What value could I possibly bring amongst this pandemic, of just negativity and just look, there's a lot of crap going on. I get it. And then you just, tack on a presidential debate here and there and an election, and it just gets even more. Right? It's just, it's insane. So what do you say to the client out there that's just like, Brandy, I just don't know what value I could possibly bring to a community right now?
I love, love, love that you asked this question because this is my jam. So I learned so let's use a car dealership because I don't know jack about car dealerships. I don't know anything about it, right? So this is where I know that I would go in and say, okay, I am a 40-something-year-old single mom who's actually going to be buying a new car. Like, I'm looking at cars right now. I'm glad you asked this question.
Okay, cool. Let's do this. This will be fun.
Right? So I'm thinking, I'm your ideal client. Now, what if you could have a room full of women like me and you could have 50 women in a room and you don't know if they want a car, but how do you get them in a room? Collaboration.
100%. Either education or entertainment.
So exactly. So with our clients, for example, I brought up the restaurant earlier. One of the things that we started doing with him, we started having events, 2 different types of events. One for entrepreneurs, basically networking, with a little bit of an educational piece, but they always met at his restaurant. And of course, he gave them a discount. So they're there, they're enjoying their lunch, they're meeting other entrepreneurs, they're networking. He's offered an opportunity for collaboration with these other businesses. And then I was like, offer them your space on your downtime or certain times of the day to also bring in other groups. Then I was like they're a college. I was like, offer free Wi-Fi on these specific days to the college students to come in and eat lunch and have free Wi-Fi.
That's a good one.
I'm trying to think of some of our others.
I got one. I have a dealership right now. I've always been kind of a big thing. It's like, it's not enough just to be, in your community. You need to be a part of that community. Like, it's a totally different type of mindset, right? We'll use for car dealers as an example. They think that, spending money to sponsor a baseball team, a little league baseball team, or, parking their car at the local rib fest is like being a part of the community. I'm like, no, you're just in it. Congratulations. You're in it. You share the same zip code as everybody else. Congrats. Right. But being a part is an entirely different thing. And I have a dealership right now that has really done a great job. And speaking of hashtags, you'll love this. They really started this a Cambridge Proud, and it's a town's called Cambridge, and it's just like they're a business in the community. They're a part of this. They're dealing with the same stuff that a lot of these other businesses are doing. So instead of focusing necessarily on their own business, they're going out to put a spotlight and spend some of those dollars that they would normally spend in highlighting and putting the spotlight on other businesses. And they didn't do it with the intention of creating a community. They just thought if they're going to spend money right now, this is where they should spend their money, is in giving back to the community. But the crazy thing is they ended up creating this big following. And a lot of people are connecting from it, and they're talking and they're exchanging about their favorite local spots and things to do and places to go. I'm sure you've probably seen a few examples of something along that lines as well, no?
Yeah, we did that with the restaurant. We started that so every Wednesday, people vote. They have a week from Wednesday to the following Wednesday when the winner's announced. So we have them announce, like, who's your favorite local photographer, police officer, doctor, pediatrician, nurse, teacher. And so people in that community, we get them to tag their favorites, and talk about them. So not only, of course, is it helping build the community, build the following, build the engagement for the client, but now it's bringing new exposure to them and creating that community, because same thing, he's honoring them, saying, congrats. So, and they get 2 free meals on him for being voted the best.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So I love it.
Well, that continues to bring that value proposition, why someone would want to continue to follow and be a part of that business. Brandy, I know it's getting towards the tail end of our time, and thank you so much for jamming with me today. This has been a lot of fun. But before I let you go, though, for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now and would love to connect with you and kind of follow along with your journey, and anybody out there listening, you guys got to, especially her TikToks, you keep me laughing like all day long. So, but what's the best way to connect with you, Brandy?
So either look up #TruthBomb or Brandy Hollaway. I always start by Holla because it's HOLLAWAY. And I'm freaking everywhere that I can be other than Snapchat. So I don't have the capacity for that. And my clientele is not on Snapchat.
That's cool.
But yeah, I'm on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And of course, the Phoenix Factor, you'll find that place. But that's what I did with my business. I branded myself. I put my vision out, and people know, they know how to find the Phoenix Factor from there.
That's awesome. Hey, again, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today, Brandy. This has been a ton of fun. You have yourself an amazing day.
Awesome. Thank you. You too.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy Mob podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to sign up to be a mobster at strategymob.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.